Today we'll discuss this issue for revising now. Mostly with regard to revising our own text, here we fall into two categories. Some people just fall in love with every sentence they write. They theoretically recognize the need to revise, yes, but they just feel so also distraught here when they have to get down to changing something in their text. Now, there is another category of authors in the academia. I belong to this second category, who are super self-critical, who really hate whatever work in progress they've got, who usually feel the need to revise. But that's all, that doesn't help much, because we need to know what exactly we should change. So how do we know when and which parts of the text we need to change? So that's what we'll be tackling with tonight. So first we'll briefly discuss just when we need to rewrite parts or maybe really large chunks of our text, and the indicators, why we need to revise these events. Then we'll get down to details, what should we pay special attention to when revising our manuscripts prior to submitting it to a journal or to a publishing house for its monograph or whatnot. So what exactly can go wrong? We'll deal first with the structure of the text as a whole. I will work primarily with, by far the most popular genre of academic writing, namely a journal article. And then we'll zoom in on the micro level. So the paragraph structure, which is extremely important when we're writing in English in particular, and also sentence level issues. And after that, we'll cover some of their, actually a huge amount of issues that can arise when we prepare our text for resubmission. So what should we do with some of their most popular comments we get from reviewers, and what if we really can't understand what a reviewer wants from us as the authors. So I hope that by the end of today's workshop, you'll feel more confident and less stressed that the character in this cartoon is feeling, as you see. Although, yes, I believe virtually any scholar who's ever tried to publish something at all can feel the same. Yes, so it reminds us of something, maybe of ourselves. So to begin with, how would you continue the following phrase? First draft is always has too many words. It's a problem, because journals are usually very strict regarding their upper words limits. First draft is always awful. That sounds harsh, but a lot of truth in it. Let's say collection of original good ideas, but is raw. Here needs further polish. Absolutely, polish is a very good word describing what you do to your paper. You're not torturing it. Yes, you're not struggling with it. You're making it better. Yeah, you're polishing it. It's definitely worth the efforts. So your paper is available. It needs to be read again. Yes. So if you finish it 5 minutes before the absolutely last deadline, maybe you won't be able to reread it. Shitty first drafts. Oh yeah, there are lots of first drafts like that. We can only hope on the first drafts are like that. Okay, so thank you. And actually, this phrase is found in one of my favorite books ever on academic writing, and most of your answers were very, very, very close to that original quote. That's it. You see, first draft is always horrible. And now this book is written in a rather humorous manner. So surely the author is trying to overemphasize some things to create this effect. But in general, yes. Now, why is it the case? Because our brain is very ill equipped, so to see, to handle two or more different kinds of tasks at the same time. So putting your ideas into writing is one kind of task, and perfecting your text, editing when you're dealing with the form much more than the substance, is a totally different task. So a good idea is just to separate the two. Well, the main purpose of the first drafts is you have some text that you can improve later on. You have your ideas not just in your mind, but in some form of words and sentences on paper, on the screen nowadays usually. And then you can switch your mind and give your brain a different kind of task. Now you can start bothering about the shape or your text is molding into. So what makes the first drafts horrible is well, it's a question that requires quite a lengthy answer. Well, there are some individual quirks, idiosyncrasies, but in general, there are some very typical mistakes. I can see it in my own text. I can see it very often as a reviewer, or when I get some papers from journals. I can see it as an editor, actually as an editor of some couple of special issues. And now let's consider what these typical things are. Now, the first mistake that affects the structure of the text as a whole is what I like to call a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Now, please have a look at this example. And what is not well, this example. Cognitive development is a huge area with over a century-long history of very intense research. And this paper even suggests that cognitive development is going to be somehow tied with some other spheres of human development, which is just extremely broad. Yes, so an article is not an entry-level textbook. So it should be really, really, really specific. So it's really saying if you have to err, better err on the side on specificity. But actually, it's very difficult to do. It's very difficult to become too specific in your paper. Yeah, so obviously usually we start an intersection to our article with establishing the context. But then very quickly, usually by the end of the very first paragraph, we just narrow our field. So that by the end of the first paragraph, we show the exact scope of our specific paper. And this is just much too broad. A single paper just cannot cover all things related to development. Okay, so yeah, so you need to map a very small part of their universe, maybe something like a part of a street with several houses on a given planet, not a galaxy. Okay, now let's move on. Another thing I painfully often find, I rarely find it in published articles, but I very often find it in articles that I get sent to for review. Now, this example, what's wrong about this text? There is hardly any coherence. What else? Mind wandering from one thing to another, and these things are incompatible. Yes, and it could be three different articles. Yes, maybe more, or provided the author has some substantive materials to fill this article. Yeah, because so we read the first sentence here. We see it introduces two huge topics. Yeah, cognitive development is a really huge topic. Life satisfaction research is also huge. Okay, so we see the author is trying to introduce two big topics. So what we expect is to somehow narrow down. Yeah, what's exactly about cognitive development, and what's exactly about life satisfaction. Next, we get introduced to different topic. Happiness. Okay, happiness is close to life satisfaction, but people who are in life satisfaction research differentiates with a lot of reasons. Yeah, they're not the same. And then we have the issue of school grades, which is totally different subjects. And here we have professional success, all of a sudden, yet another huge subject. And well-being, happiness, and life satisfaction are related to each other in a very interesting way. So we are also confused whether the author believes falsely that these three are synonyms, or probably the author is going to deal with each of these issues in one single article. So it's really, really like a roller coaster. Yes, it's really surprising. Yes, each new turn we see something totally different, and in the end of this text, the reader is like totally confused. So what is this paper about? It can't be about all these things, and it does not establish their frame of reference, yet it's kind of pattern that where each of these things could find some place. Yeah, it's really incoherent. And several months ago, I reviewed for a really good journal an article that has some quite interesting ideas, but every single paragraph introduced something totally new, something totally unrelated to the previous paragraph, which was fun to read, but very little use. I'm sorry to say, and that article was rejected outright. I recommended a very major revision, but it's a very high-ranking journal, so probably the editor decided not to bother with that paper. Okay, and the third typical mistake is what I like to call whodunit. Yes, so now let's consider this example. Why should this text be very seriously revised? And so what's wrong with this? There are lots of specific information. It says basically that the structure of this paper is very much like a structure for just any paper, well, at least any paper presenting some empirical research. Yeah, so there are some conclusions, and there are some results. What exactly they are is a big mystery. And also the order of ideas. Yes, by the way, we usually find this kind of text. It can be the last paragraph of the introductory section, yeah, the so-called roadmap. Or I've seen a lot of abstracts written this way. Yes, no results eliminated, absolutely. It's no use telling to the reader that there are some results. We know that usually there should be some results. We are interested to know what the results are. So yeah, there is a major issue with a great deal of papers. The results and their importance here, their most important takeaways from these results are kept until their very end. Now that's not the case. Yeah, in too general, absolutely. It makes the text too general. So in a detective story, yes, it's part of the fun. Yeah, that we discover who the murderer was in the last 5 to 10 pages. But yeah, our paper is not a detective story. A detective story is something that's detective novel that's read for fun by people who have some free time and want to enjoy their free time. Now, a typical reader of an academic paper is some super busy researcher who probably also teaches a lot and have some other things to do. And anyway, a lot of papers get published on all sorts of issues. So we are all struggling with keeping to date in with what is published in our even our narrow fields. So this reader wants to know whether this paper is worth reading from the very beginning. Yes, so the main points should come first. You'll have the time to explain how you got to these results, to prove that these results is valid, and to explain all the minutiae, all the small details later on. But you need to show what it's about near the beginning. Yes, so in the structure of a typical paper is not exactly like their course of research. In the research, we can get our main results in the very end. Oh, that's what we're expected to do. But it's an article. It's not a diary. We are not describing our actual experience. Yes, we are serving the reader with some useful information. And now let's consider the first practice task. So now please read this abstract. Which of these three mistakes you can identify in these kind of abstracts? No information about the aim. Yes, here we get the main points of what it's all about. So it's unclear. Yes, unclear what sphere the results contribute to. Yes, so what question here this researcher tries to tackle. Yes, and the connection between ideas is rather poor. So which of these are three mistakes? The abstract mostly consists of an introduction. The order of thoughts is unclear. It doesn't begin in the beginning, and where it goes from is just a mystery. And the numbers, yeah, just mistake one, yeah, mistake two, mistake three. Yeah, so is it this guide to the galaxy, or maybe a roller coaster, or maybe it's this spontaneous mistake? All three, you're quite right. Although there is this third mistake, we've by the time you read until the very last version, the very last sentence of the abstract, we still have no idea what on earth the results may be. Also, yes, there is this very bizarre relation between our points are introduced in our every single sentence. Yes, so they do not flow. Yet use the phrase "beloved" by some reviewers and many editors, and it's very general. So it's really reads like most like a long introduction. It never gets to the points, what it's about and what it tells us. about it. So yes, this is a kind of a really poor abstract. It's loosely modeled on an abstract of a paper I had to work with as an editor. The research itself is very interesting, but well, the author is very young and really inexperienced. So I changed some details and changed the research field but well, the structures like this. It happens in real life. And now let's practice. Please take your time and try to, well, to beat these abstracts into shape. That's a very logical question. You can suggest, yes, some of your own ideas. Yeah, you can use your imagination here as to what the results might be. Just try to make it more specific. And in case it's not your research area, don't worry, it's not even close to my research area either, and I choose it on purpose because I wanted to look at it from the point of view of somebody who's practicing. I'll show you my version of what can be done to these abstracts later on. Yeah, so you don't need to conduct your own research on 150 compositions within these 10 to 15 minutes. You can just imagine. Or if you really think you have better things to do, then imagine some results of some research on well, in cognitive science. You can just leave well, part of the sentences are empty because we're interested in structure. Yes, you can write like something like so the method used was some blank space, or the results demonstrate that some blank space. Yes, if you wish, you can do this way too. Yes, if you think only the conclusion needs to be changed, yes, by all means. It doesn't mean that you absolutely need to change every single verse. Just whatever you believe requires some changes. It's a very well relaxed kind of affair. I mean, you're not yet preparing your Nobel Prize receiving address. Yeah, so it's not that super important here. And I agree, it's not by no means an easy task, but then few things about academic writing are ever easy. Some implications, yes, it's better to have them in the abstracts already. Yes, so it is often said that each paper should answer the one question, so what? And it's really good when some shorter, yes, truncated version of an answer to this question is found already in the abstracts, because the abstract is probably the most widely read part of any paper. Well, there are many ways of improving these abstracts. Let's move one step forward. And now this is my own version of what these abstracts could look like after the revision. You see here, the structure is very simply the following. Yeah, like the first sentence states the problem. Like before we give some answers, we need to ask the questions. Then, yeah, in the second sentence, we have the goal. We can put it explicitly, and the goal of this research is, or we can do it another way, some other ways, but yeah, we need to do it. There we have there briefly well, dates and methods, and there we have there the main results, and the main result can be the most counterintuitive result, something that really adds to their pool of knowledge in the sphere, yeah, the so-called added value of the research. What usually goes wrong about the structure of the text. Now, let's look at the paragraphs. Now, in the academic writing in English, there is a very strict paragraph structure. That's really very, very strict. I mean, in creative writing, you can experiment with paragraphs, yeah, but in the academic writing, it's very well uniform, and all the exceptions look well really weird when you got used to reading a lot of academic papers. Yes, so we have this first sentence of a paragraph. The sentence introduces the topic. So one paragraph, one topic. In the end, we have a summary, and this summary goes back to this topic, and it makes some points on this topic, and also it suggests where we are heading to next. Yeah, so what the next paragraph is going to be about. And in between, we have 1, 2, 3, well, occasionally more sentences with some supporting evidence. Yes, sentences that develop the topic, yeah, maybe give some arguments or provide some details. It's very important here that all this stuff in between really sticks to this topic of the paragraph. And also, it's really important not to break the paragraph by not ending this final sentence. In fact, yeah, these are the two mistakes I most commonly find in the paragraph structure. First, when there is some, well, maybe interesting but rather relevant material in the middle. And second, when the paragraph is dedicated to a single topic, but it ends, well, rather abruptly. Yeah, so this last sentence in the paragraph should be like no other previous sentence. It's really a summary, like it goes back to this first sentence. So we need a sequence of nicely rounded paragraphs. If yeah, and in the well, the description of this workshop, yeah, one of the promises is maybe what does it mean when somebody says that the text doesn't flow. So what it means is usually that a paragraph structure does not follow this rule of thumb, either of the two. And now, some paragraphs that are very easily recognized as definitely wrong. First, yeah, in academic writing, paragraphs usually do not consist of well, a single sentence. Here again, in creative writing, like in fiction, in well, some creative essays, we can find all kinds of things one can do with their text, but here it's not the case. Also, yeah, too long paragraphs are no good. What too long means is a more debatable question, but I'd say that if your paragraph is longer than 2/3 of a standard page, you really need to consider breaking it into 2 paragraphs. I'm myself prone to writing very long sentences that naturally form excruciatingly long paragraphs. So when I revise, I know that I really need to pay particular attention to this issue. I break up my sentences, then I break up my paragraphs, and then it's much more readable than these horrible, awful first drafts. And yes, if you introduce some really different issues, something that was not suggested in the previous paragraph, so if your next paragraph deals with some quite different idea, you need what is called meta language. Yes, so something guiding the reader. Like landmarks, yeah, that show how the text is organized. Now, in academic writing, especially in English, we use quite a lot of this meta language. Some great authors are not really happy about it, but well, so far it remains like the standards. As if you were speaking about one thing, then you need to jump to another thing. Then you need to put something like moving to a different issue, or some authors reference, consider it to be related to something else entirely, and then you can proceed to this something else, whatever it may be. Yes, the trick is not to overuse meta-language. If you're overusing meta-language, probably you really jump from one issue to another rather too often, so it's more of an exception, and then you need to reconsider the structure at the level of the text. And yeah, something we've just discussed. And now the time is for some cat pictures and for our second task. So yeah, you see this sentence about origami and math performance. And imagine that this sentence comes in the introduction section. What is the possible next sentence? Yeah, here again, we are not interested in the factual details here. Yes, so you can provide some details about origami and math performance that you believe might be true, but yeah, we're interested in the text. The started by X proofs, well, could be in the introduction. Yeah, we use some references, but usually we give references only to the most important studies in the fields. So if it's like that, yes, maybe. Active learning methods have been broadly started over the last 20 years. Yes, it's something very common in the introduction. Yes, something has been started over, well, some decades or, well, some time span. Absolutely. However, yes, it's another thing we can do in the introduction. Define some gap in the research. Absolutely. However, it's a myth we're going to debunk. Well, if you have some really groundbreaking results, it's it's a very good thing, because it's going to make the reader just jump So some major discoveries follow. Well, if this reader is particularly enthusiastic about origami, or if the reader cares specifically about math performance, that's definitely going to grab the attention. Well, I'm both, by the way. Okay. Yes, so usually in the introduction, this sentence is some kind of the background, context, and again, this context representing our own research. Now, my version is quite similar to some of yours. Yes, so this is well, identifying the gap. Yes, so it's not maybe as striking as but it's all wrong. It's a really good thing if you can debunk some results. But by all means, just go for it. Yeah, so this one is rather modest. Yeah, and so something is known, but nobody has tackled with some related issue. A very common thing in the introduction. And now let's consider the same sentence, but as a part of the lit review. So could be the reference. We need references more or less in all sections, but in a lit review, references abound. Yes, so the first thing we expect here is reference. Yeah, the following authors prove the statements, but others, yes, references, absolutely, as shown in yes, yet another good way for offering some support by references. Maybe the existing story show positive effects, and then we proceed to give specific papers where these studies are published. Absolutely, very good. Yes, so you see the same sentence here in the list review. Yeah, could be, but here it's going to be a start of first, some subtopic as supported by details, like who discovered it, how and where these results were published. Now, in my sample, it's like this. Yes, some extra details and obviously, yes, references. And now, for the third final part of this task, let's consider this sentence in the results section. What could the next sentence be in the results? The calls for introducing origami lesson at school. Wait, I'd say it's more likely to appear in their conclusions here, or discussion and conclusion section. Yeah, the practical implications. In the results, we usually just present the results. We do not generalize upon them. In quantitative research, in the standard paper, a positive link between origami and learning achievements. Yes, there's like an elaboration of what the results are. Yes, especially if you're writing for a broader audience with varying levels of training in data analysis. It can be a really useful sentence. Children have been making origami of animals, showed them in high interest. Here you further give zoom in, give some auxiliary details. Absolutely. I really wonder if it's the case, maybe, by the way. I was started to bounce previous research. Well, here again, it would be a great idea to put this sentence to their discussion, because in the discussion section, you compare your results to some previous results and highlight their significance and their added value. Here you just present the results in much detail, and but you generalize upon them later on. Yes, showing that it means a connection, absolutely, explaining the meaning of the results. The different structure. Well, yes, some journals are not that strict as regards the IMRAD, but you really, before you merge conclusions with the results, especially if it's quantitative research, you really need to be sure that's done in that particular journal. And the best way of getting to know it is just by reading the most recent issues of a given journal. So if it's done, yes, by all means, go for it. Sometimes it is done. Sometimes you can experiment even further with the text, but just to be on the safe side, or if you're not sure, or if it's this case, especially for if it's a U.S. American journal, they are more well devoted to this strict IMRAD structure than in some nearly all other parts of the world. So the reading structure, you know how to do it. When you can do it, you can experiment with it. Okay, so yes, and this is one version. It gives some information on some extra statistical tests. The tests that were performed to prove the robustness of this effect. So you see the same sentence. It can belong to very different sections of the paper, yes, and it would go just fine in each case, provided it's presented here in a proper context, and is followed by a proper next sentence. Okay, so much about paragraphs. Now let's consider the things that can require revision within a single sentence. And here, there is an important caveat. Namely, many of us remember, yes, when learning English as a foreign language, not academic English, like plain English, especially when preparing for exams, like high-level exams, we were trained to do a lot of things. For example, I remember especially when getting ready for C2, the C2 level exam, Cambridge proficiency, I was advised and very properly to just show what you can do, show really sophisticated grammar structures, show you can use sophisticated words. Because the purpose of this exam is to test or how wide the range is of things that you can do in English. Now in academic writing, yeah, the purpose is quite different. Yeah, and it is to convey the meaning in the clearest way possible. So when I started write regularly for journals, I found out that I had to unlearn quite a lot of things that I so laboriously learned for these language exams. Here again, we have our dedicated but overworked reader in mind. Yeah, people in academia attempt to be really dedicated, and it's a great way of loading ourselves with so much work just because it's so much fun. Of course, we do. So what we usually don't want to have, yeah, long sentences. Yeah, especially when one long sentence follows upon another. Ideally, you should vary the length of your sentences. Yeah, where you don't want to have only very short sentences. You want some variety, but super long sentences, especially with the sophisticated grammar structure, are to be avoided rather. To have pity, take pity of your readers. Then, yeah, if they're very basic book and style, advises, yeah, like write with the nouns and verbs. If you can omit some adjectives and some adverbs, especially those that qualify something like very and so on, if you can omit them, go for it, just do it. And usually you can. Another thing that happens really often is the overuse of the verb to be. As the good idea is to use these active verbs. So instead of the goal of this research is, yeah, you can write that this research aims to do something. It's really monotonous when you have is, are, is, and so on. Yeah, and the linking words here again in their exam essays. The examiners love to see a lot of these words. Nevertheless, however, notwithstanding, and even though, and so on, in academic writing, usually not. Some authors who really write well, they believe that these words should be used at a minimum, and especially not in the beginning of the sentence. So something, however, remains unclear is better than however something remains unclear. But if this, however, helps you, keep it. If not, maybe not. And another thing that really creeps into so many sentences in academic writing is some words that appear from nowhere between the subject and the verb. It's, well, you're not writing auxiliary sentences in German where the verb invariably comes in the end of the sentence. Yeah, here the verb better comes right after the subject or as close to the subject as possible, so that the reader doesn't forget who is doing whatever the verb suggests is doing in this particular sentence. So these are some things we should pay attention to. And now let's look at some sentences that really need rescue. Now, this sentence, what can be done to improve it? much too many superlatives. Absolutely. Yeah, the regression models presented in table 12 demonstrate the importance. Absolutely, yes. We can just omit a lot of the verbs in the sentences. Regression models presented in quiet. Yes, excessive use of adjectives. You see here, I believe you'll agree with me that this sentence is quite irritating. Yes, it's filled with verbal claptrap that adds absolutely nothing to our understanding of what the author is trying to convey to us. Yeah, just words. So that's how I suggest it can be changed, and also it can be broken into two shorter sentences, and there we go on from here. And now let's go ahead. So what's about this sentence? Let's help it. Let's rescue it. By far the most natural thing to do is just omit all this extra stuff that comes between the subject and the verb. What? Yeah, we can rephrase it in some other ways, but this is by far the most necessary thing to do here. And also, I'd see that such a sentence is usually perceived as reflecting uncertainty, like the author excuses her or himself to report. Here, more than three words between. Yeah, too many separated words. Okay, and now let's move on. Yeah, this is just a very basic thing that's okay. It's not original, but then it's not creative writing, and it does the trick. Now, the third and final sentence. What's the matter with that? Let's help it. It's not as awful as the previous two. Yeah, the results are presented in figure 3. Probably we don't want to say that. Yeah, all the presented in the stacked bar chart. But look at figure 3. Well, I say almost 100% of the readers are going to recognize it as a stacked bar chart, and those who can't won't get much extra information by knowing that this thing is called a stacked bar chart. So that's how would I change it? I would just submit it. And here you see two very short sentences with very similar structure. And finally, something we, the authors, love to complain about is reviewers' comments. Yeah? So here, an important thing is minor revisions. Here, minor revisions is the indicator that you need to change something about the text. Yeah, your research is mostly okay, but you need to do something about the text. And importantly, it doesn't mean that you need to do a little about the text. I had a case where the list of what I've done to the text was 8 pages long. It's 8 pages long of really brief comments to a huge number of sentences. Yeah, and reject and resubmit means basically that you need to conduct a totally different research, probably with different methods, and then you can resubmit in a year or so. And now we have the final test. What should we do if we have these comments? Well, crying Well, it's the first thing we do when we get some nasty feedback. Quite natural, crying a lot. Yeah, that's the second thing we do when we have rather more time. What's next? A properly to review. Well, maybe actually these comments I wrote it sometimes. Yeah, it means that our discussion lacks originality. So the conclusions we make from our results are not that original. So they had been known before we got the results. So we really need to reconsider their interesting new implications from our results. Now, what's about this? That's where we can start crying a lot. Absolutely. It's an even nastier comment. What else can we do? To state the novelty more clearly, yes, to read more extensively and present in a different way. Usually it means that we need to formulate the added value more clearly and yeah, make sure it's really new, that it's convincing. Yeah, that's and finally think that yes, to emphasize them absolutely. Finally, something that's is really super nasty thing. What if you get this? People get it all the time. So often I even heard a verb, yes, like so I've been native speakers by a reviewer. What should we do here? A lot of native speakers get such comments from reviewers. Life is harsh.
Come to the Academic Writing Center for an individual consultation.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity that we have, and we are lucky to have it. Yes, it's the first thing we can do. Unfortunately, there are some undercurrents sometimes. Yeah, give it to different native speakers. Yes, maybe, or not, or better still, to native speakers proficient in academic writing. And well, you may forgive or you may not, because sometimes, yeah, it can mean that you have some style and grammar issues to address. It can mean that the issue is about academic English, not about English as such, or sometimes it can be given by a really lazy reviewer that seems to dislike vaguely something about your paper, but doesn't bother to identify what this something is, and goes for the lowest common denominator, because it requires really zero effort to write it. Yeah, if it doesn't identify specific mistakes, if it means that do whatever you can, and hope for editors that are more conscientious, that's reviewers, and start looking for another journal. And for unfortunately, that's not. And in this latter case, even professional proofreading is only going to lead you so far, yeah, because you can't get inside the reviewer's hands if they do not express their points. If we are not particularly unlucky with our reviews, if they really mean what they write, in this case, proofreading is super helpful. But it's just not to be discouraged. Yes, if your text is just perfect in terms of style and what's not, well, there is this chance that somebody on the other side is really nasty and cannot even be nasty in sufficient detail. Okay, so we've come to at the end of the test. Here's the checklist that you'll find in the presentation. And I like to emphasize the last points. Yet to make sure that its sentence sounds well, it says exactly what it says. So one of the best things you can do to your paper is to read it aloud, just sentence by sentence. If it sounds well, it reads well. If it doesn't sound well, probably not all is well with this particular sentence. And yes, it requires quite some time. So I'm afraid we've all done something in the last minutes. But, well, I do it occasionally. Yet to what extent it is accepted? Well, humor is one of those things that are very difficult to do. I'd see that they are accepted by some well-established scholars in the given fields who are known for, even renowned for their sense of humor. And between the readings, the first and especially their second source are written by such authors. But I see that if you're not sure, it's better to play it safe. I really wish you good luck with the reviewers, the editors. Yes, it's the right time to write. I love this motto. Let's have a lot of our ideas turned to published articles.